Hello, welcome to the Hobby Hour, episode 21. As usual, it's been a while, and it's an out of the frying pan special, klaxons and all, because Games Workshop sent me this, and Dan and I are going to talk about it.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet.
So we're going to do our usual and chatter for about 10 minutes or so, a bit of a hobby catch-up before we delve into our thoughts on the box. So for those of you who are watching this for the first time because of all the Middle-earth new releases and news and things like that. So the Hobby Hour is a long-running podcast, even though it's only 21 episodes in. It used to be Out of the Frying Pan, a podcast we used to do was just Middle-earth, which was audio only, going back a couple of years now, wasn't it, Dan? And it evolved into this, which now lives on my YouTube channel. And because my YouTube channel got sent this for Games Workshop, got sent the starter, Dan has been allowed, and it's been covered by the NDA as well, to talk about this, which is really, really cool. So we're doing a bit of an Out of the Frying Pan special edition Hobby Hour. So we will do our usual podcasty bits, but condense them a little bit, and then we will just give our thoughts on the release as a whole and that new starter set. So with that sort of preamble out of the way, Dan, how have you been? What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, it's been a little while since we recorded in general, hasn't it? It's been a few months. So there has been some headway, some work done on the Warriors of Chaos. For anyone who's tuning in new, I am working on an old world Warriors of Chaos army very slowly because I actually paint reasonably quickly, but I don't paint very often. Is my issue because I can be incredibly lazy. I can also have very grand ideas. Now, I've been working on some bits and pieces to do with basing for those Warriors of Chaos. I decided it would be a really good idea to flood the bottom of the bases with resin to make them solid so the magnets and stuff wouldn't fall out because I'm mucking around with stuff actually. I've done some basing. Here's one I made earlier, So actually you can kind of see. And this is where it all goes horribly wrong. Right. Very gingerly doing that, but yeah. So
I'll have put up the images you've sent of the resin poured bases as well, so the people will have seen that as you were talking about it.
Yeah, so I've also I decided when they showcased the Blood Bowl Chaos Dwarfs, I was like, I got to make a Chaos Dwarf. Just one, because the prices for those individually on eBay are hilariously expensive.
Yeah.
So I converted one up to be basically Chaos Dwarf. Also tested my basing scheme. He'll be coming off that base. He's going in one of my unit fillers. Aside from that, I've been working on basing, as I said, resin pouring. Took me about 10 days to get away from the headache from doing that. Ventilation is key, even with the UV stuff. Killed a few brain cells probably, and I've done quite a lot of reading because I'm also studying for a course in real life alongside having a full-time job, etc. So my time has been a bit more chewed up. So I've been reading. I read all of the End Times books. I don't think I'd finished those last time we were speaking. Some interesting mixed feelings on those. Some of them were quite rushed, but I enjoyed them, especially the Malekith book, or Malarian for those of us tuning in from Age of Sigmar. And then I'm currently reading the Sigmar trilogy, the Age of Legends ones, which I'm really enjoying. Aside from that, I don't think I've really got an awful lot of hobby to talk about. Obviously, you'll probably cover it, but I popped up and saw you when you were at Warhammer World recently.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, it's kind of it. And next stop, Middle-earth, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, Malarian is the old world name for him now as well. I think that's
yes.
There's an IP issue, potential issue that they're dodging around, so he's been kind of rebranded now. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I won't go into it as much because so much of my hobby is shared on this channel. So if you're a subscriber to the channel, you'll have seen all my painting tutorials. You'll know what I'm working on. So I'm slowly chipping away at Empire for Warhammer the Old World, which is taking up a good chunk of it, but there's loads of other stuff as well. So I'm not going to fill that on this episode. On all episode, I probably talked about it a little bit longer, but I know people will be eager to hear all about our thoughts on this game and a bit of a kind of extended review. So those of you who may have already watched my review video. So at the point of recording this, this is the day before pre-order. We're recording this. But the video for that, the full review of the box, would have gone out on the channel anyway. So you may have seen that and been directed in that video to come and watch our more sort of laid back, in-depth thoughts on it. Yeah, I've painted a couple of miniatures from that set already. They will be painting tutorials this coming week, one Tuesday, hopefully. I shouldn't really promise until this on. And then the following one, the following Thursday, so a week away from this video as well. So that's the plan. So lots more of the new Middle-earth content there. I'll pop a couple of little images up as I'm rabbiting away. But that's really been it. Just chipping away all the stuff on the channel. So many different hobby projects for different game systems, very heavily leaning on old world as usual. And now Middle-earth again as well. Like you said, we met up at Warhammer World. It was actually my son's 10th birthday, or a couple of days beforehand, and as part of a treat, I took him up. We stayed in the hotel the night before, spent the day playing 40k actually at Warhammer World, booked one of the cool special tables, which is really, really nice. Played some games of Combat Patrol, tried to. Dan helped, even though he doesn't play 40k, you still knew more than us about it. But we had loads of fun, hung out. One of my commissioned clients was over on his honeymoon with his wife from the US. So yeah, Greg spent some time with us as well. Really, really nice to see him as well. So cool stuff. Loads of not really nice to see. It's been ages. Last time I was supposed to see, I wasn't very well and wasn't able to go to CrackCon. But I think we'll leave it at that. Loads of stuff, but we'll leave it at that for today.
We've glossed over the fact that you got a whooping as well.
Yeah, I lost twice. He beat me again after you left. That Necron Combat Patrol is filth, and I don't know what I'm doing with my Astra Militarum. But anyway, yeah, what we'll do is we will take extremely short break, and we'll be right back, and we'll give you all of our thoughts on the new Middle-earth releases. Right, I said it was a short break, and we are back. It's a little bit longer for us. Children with their first wobbly tooths and all of that going on in the background in my house. But anyway, so we, like you said in the sort of the intro section, we haven't recorded in a while, and I think the last show we did, we noted a little bit about the announcement. They showed the game, didn't they? They showed the setup of the game. We made a couple of comments on it. We knew the film was on the way anyway. That's been announced for a couple of years now. But we've both been snoozing on the game system for a little while. I haven't played for about a year or so. Just been focusing on old world. Definitely not giving up on Middle-earth strategy battle game, but just when you play multiple game systems, sometimes you snooze one. And we are very much casual and narrative focused players. Both been to some events. I do enjoy events, but I'm not on that event scene where I'm thinking meta all the time. Nothing wrong with that either, by the way. But when we move away from a game and playing something else, sometimes you kind of keep an eye on it in the background, but just weren't really doing any gaming. And I know a few people would have been interested in our thoughts on all the developments since then. And then we've both been quite busy, not been able to record. And then at the same time, I've probably known for a month now that I was likely to be sent this, and I've had it for a couple of weeks. So as soon as I knew I was likely to be sent it, I didn't want to make a video speculating on something that any moment later I could know, because it would seem silly if we decided to plan and talk about it and then it arrived and I'm pretending I didn't know what it was like. So I just thought, well, we'll just wait till I get it. And then I asked a question about whether we could allow you to talk about it as well. And the NDA, the way it works, is kind of extended to Dan for use of doing the podcast here, which is really nice as well. So unfortunately for Dan, they don't send him things as well.
I have enough stuff. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you're not a big fan of plastic sitting there, don't you? But the box is sent to the channel essentially. But because the channel hosts this podcast, Dan is allowed to I'm allowed to share some things with him, which means in going forward, hopefully we will be allowed to do certain things. Dan will get up sort of a copy of a PDF with my name probably plastered all over it, so that if he shares it, then I will get in trouble. But it means we can talk about it. So we got together very briefly. So we talked about getting together at Warhammer World. We managed to get together after that as well, unplanned, very, very briefly, before I was able to build anything. And there wasn't enough time for a game. So we can't give you, we've played the game. The kind of thing. We just don't live. If for those of you who don't know, Dan lives about 3 hours away from me, so we couldn't get together to kind of play a game, and bring you that kind of report. Otherwise, I would have done a battle report or something or other as part of the content that I'm putting out. But we were able to kind of look through it together and get some first thoughts. Dan took lots of notes and things as well. So we are able to kind of give you our thoughts on the set, which is empty, by the way. That's why I'm flashing the box around. And then the wider release, talking a little bit about the armies books and how the community's reacting and our thoughts, because we've just been silent on all of it. We've had our opinions. We've talked about it behind the scenes. So with that extra long preamble to the second part, what's your first impressions then, Dan, of the set?
Well, the quality, that's something that's to be said. I mean, you have a certain expectation with any GW mainline box set game these days anyway. It's generally of a consistently high quality. And to be fair, Pelennor and the Osgiliath boxes were of good quality. I would say this carries that on. If anything's again taken it up a notch. I was impressed by that. Some of the little touches, having the painted miniatures around the side of the box, and having things in the envelopes rather than in just cellophane or whatever.
Hmm.
The quick reference guide and the or the Rohirrim, was it the scenario guide they call it?
Yeah, it's all in one, that, and then the other
Yeah,
envelope had the battle mat
the
in the game
mat in it,
there,
the
so
map.
the poster
Yeah,
mat
that,
thing.
which is again a really cool thing. I think much like you've commented on the thicker cardstock ones that you get with the likes of Kill Team, etc.,
Mm,
would have been nice, but
yeah,
who's to say that might have not caused problems with getting it? We live in the world we live in, logistics. Maybe that would have been the difference between a month or two in release. I will take that
yeah,
on the
maybe.
chin. But it's still great. It's nice for it. We grew up in an age of Sabutio mats and all that kind of stuff, didn't we? And
Hmm.
you get houses in it. I mean, I don't know many people who are playing Middle Earth at the moment who don't own their own house because it's a great bit of kit. I mean,
Yeah,
I did enough for the event I ran beginning of the year.
yes,
So with my box, I will have two more.
yeah,
I think I'm actually going to buy a third and make a big building out of it.
yeah.
That's
They're
my plan for
so
those, I think.
versatile. Yeah.
And I might try and get hold of some of the Lake Town houses bits as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've used those extensively on my Mordheim, and I mentioned
Mm.
that in my little review video that went out yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's the models. Yeah, I mean that's a whole different part to it, isn't it? I mean, this is the first time we've seen plastic warrior models
Hmm.
in, well, probably
Multi-part.
20 years. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
plastic multi-part models for warriors for, yeah, it's got to be what, 20 years?
Well, there was
When do you reckon the
some
last
there were
ones
some
were?
for the Hobbit, weren't there?
Oh, of course there
Um,
were. Sorry, yeah, there was the like the Royal Guard and stuff
mhm.
for Halls of Thranduil.
Dwarves
But
as well. There were quite a few plastic ones, but
yeah, that's a good point. But it's still worse over a decade.
yeah. Since
So
since since its Middle Earth strategy battle game incarnation, I don't think
mm,
there's been any plastic warriors since then.
his first ones had to glue the faces on, but
Yeah.
but it's one, the models are fantastic. They're beautiful. All of them are. I love the fact they've maintained the commonly accepted aesthetic while still being sympathetic to the different medium of the animated
Hmm.
movie. Because
Yep.
it could have been very stylized and made them look massively out of place, or even self-contained the game. Like they did the Space Marine box set where they did
Yeah.
the new uh what was in it? I can't even remember what was in it. Tyranids and a Space Marine. I think that was
Yeah.
the only thing that was in it. But
I
they
think
could
so.
have just
Yeah.
said, "Here's your box. It's adjacent, but it's not the same."
Yeah.
Which I know that people were talking about. What if they did that for Rings of Power? We were discussing that a
Hmm.
couple of years ago, weren't we? Oh, do you reckon they'll do it alongside? Do you reckon they'll keep the
Yeah.
aesthetic?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. So the fact they've actually you cross the streams, so to speak, it's great.
Yeah.
Um, they are quite complicated, I'd say. So for beginners, potentially a little challenging,
Hmm.
but you can't have one piece miniatures forever, can you?
No, no, you really can't.
So I think this is a really nice compromise on that front and beautiful new models. I'll be interested to see the price point actually, because they said they're going to do the Wild Men and the Rohan Warriors as separate boxes, didn't they? And I'm
Yes,
guessing
yeah.
the characters will come later as well, although I imagine they're naturally going to want to keep that to the box for now.
Yeah.
But they'll be
Well, people
stupid
will
not
know the
to.
price point at the time of watching this anyway.
Very true.
We
Yeah.
don't for all of them because we don't.
I'm definitely
Now,
interested.
I know I'm not going to say it because it's wrong, but you get a shipping notice with the box that was sent out that has the retail price of it on there of the full set. But I don't know the price of anything else. But just in case that wasn't the price and there's a different price, I won't bother saying it because people will know what they cost now anyway, because it would have
Yeah.
been up for pre-order for more than 24 hours by the time they're watching this. Yeah,
But
it's not a cheap
24 Warriors. Yeah, that's the thing.
it's
Spent a long
it's not a
time
cheap
asking for
starter.
it. Well, more the now because you get 24 of each, and that was the common number for the old sets.
Hmm.
I'm interested what the price difference will be.
On the yeah when they're on their own. So
Yeah,
yeah, I bet to say I've no idea what the books or the
I
individual
mean,
sets will be.
I'd hope it would be similar to what it used to be, but
Hmm.
I'd be surprised if it was. So we're going to reach that stress point of as we've said a few times, people always want the new stuff, but they're not always willing to pay for the new stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
But
going to be an interesting one.
in the comments, please let us know what you think of the I think
Yeah,
it's not a cheap set, but
no.
also I think that it's in line with that kind of miniature across the rest of the Games
Mm.
Workshop range. So it's not a surprising price, but it
No.
might be something that Middle Earth fans are used to having older sculpts, which will have lower margin cost attributed to them applied. So there may be some people that, like, I'm sure, like anything, there'll be people that think, oh, this is fair, this is good value, and there'll be people said
Mm.
it's just too much, I'm not going to get it, which is fine because a lot of those people will just buy the rule
Yeah,
books and they'll continue with their existing armies and things anyway. A lot of people won't want this. They will want to continue playing with their Minas Tirith and so on and so on, and within the timeline of Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. They may not like this film. They might not be. They're more interested in a new edition rather than this as a
of
starter. There'll
course.
be people coming to this from so many different angles.
And
But anyway,
on
I've
your point,
interrupted you where you're kind of
yeah,
giving
no, I
your
was just going
overview
to
of your
say it
thoughts.
would be disingenuous to say that it wasn't a amount of money that required thought. It,
Hmm.
it it's not cheap by any means, but I think it represents good value for money.
Yeah.
And obviously, not wanting to tread to re or retread for anyone who's previously watched your review on it. Obviously the characters are beautiful. The book is slightly smaller than the previous rule book, but not in any way that I could demonstrably tell you where it came from. I don't feel like I lost
Yeah.
anything.
I could. I mentioned it. People would have seen that in my review, but when I'll give my thoughts on that in a moment.
Yeah, but I didn't think it really lost much from doing it
No, it hasn't. It
particularly.
hasn't at all. It's
That's
very
that's more
simple where
my
it's come
point
from.
is I
Yeah.
couldn't I couldn't really after reviewing it, I was like, well, it's smaller, but I can't tell what I've lost, so did it matter
Yeah.
anyway?
Yeah.
Which is I'm loving page 15, which is the code of conduct. As
Yeah.
we discussed, I think it was one of the first things I pointed out. I said, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
More of
Well,
that,
it's
please.
similar to the one for the previous edition.
Oh, but it's expanded. There's
It's
more.
expanded a little bit. There's what like we joked about it. There's one line I wouldn't have put in it, but the rest of it I think's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think yeah, one might prove contentious where anyone wants to give too much credence to that kind of
I
thing.
think
But
people will brush over it. I don't think it's
oh,
a
of course
thing.
they will.
But yeah, there's one line I personally wouldn't put in it because I think it assumes something. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a. If I talk about it too much, it makes it feel like it's a thing. It's not. It's
No,
just
it's
a
not a
line.
thing at all. Um, Yeah, I mean, what are your overall, before we start delving into more individual sections of it, what are your thoughts? I mean, for anyone who may not have watched
Yeah,
your
well,
review of
I'm going
it,
to
please
assume
do so. But
that some people won't have seen my review of it, and if they have, then some of this they will have heard before. So yeah, beautiful quality set. The things you said, it's nice to see the paper inserts. That I mean, that's not really a Middle Earth thing. I imagine that's a Games Workshop thing going forward, trying to
mm,
be more environmentally conscious, less plastic stuff. Brilliant, great. You know, they have to sell plastic
yeah,
from their miniatures, but if they can reduce other plastic things, then great. The quality is as we've always expected. The books look like the Middle Earth strategy battle books have always been. since we've sort of had that incarnation of it, and there's always been quality throughout all the different editions of the game. It feels like a Middle Earth product. So there's no drop off in quality there. I wouldn't say it's enhanced. I'd just say that's as it was in terms of the books and things like that. This is good as well as an introduction. I nitpicking. It's probably cheaper to do it like this. I would have liked the instructions as a separate booklet, just so that this is just it. But it doesn't really matter all that much. But it'd been nicer to have these scenarios. It was fun watching people kind of try and work out why this was a 48-page booklet, and I would have been doing the same thing if I hadn't had it and already looked at it. Yeah, there's only really 16 pages that are actually rules profiles, and these are the only profiles you get because we don't get any in the main rule book. But I think it's nice to put together. The scenarios will work well for experienced players and for new players, the way that they're kind of linear and worked out. I really like the tactics section on the scenario. It basically tells you what you need to do. And rather than just an objective and you've got to assume, oh, how do I get that objective? The tactics almost kind of says, yeah, this player should be rushing their troops forward to try and get this. Again, it just gives you a little bit of a guidance. You've got the quick reference sheet, which I've buried under my iPad over here. As good as always. So all this stuff is as you would expect from the previous boxed editions. This it's really nice in terms of its quality. If you look at the image quality is really good. For me, they're just poster mats that I never really use, but I think it's great to have them in the box for people who don't have it. So you get it for Christmas or something. What I would say is everything else is premium in this set, and this isn't premium. Like you touched on the card stuff I did in my review. I'm sure that it's a business economic decision. By having this as poster meant that they could afford to put the miniatures that they did in the box. And I'm sure if I was in that meeting, I'd have gone, yeah, it's the right decision. But I will say, with all of the other big start sets now having that thick card, and maybe it's because it's 3x3 rather than the newer size boards that they use for AOS, it doesn't match their dimensions because they just double each time, don't they? So you got your kill team one size and double up, that becomes your combat patrol, and then you double up again, that becomes your 40k, etc., etc. So maybe it's a dimensions thing as well. But this would have been so much better in that card. I have no idea what the cost difference would have been and what the implications would have been to the retail price, and or what else they could have put in the set. But I don't know how much the brown plastic ruler, which is cool to have that old one that was you saw in the Hobbit set back, is better than the whippy sticks. But at the same time, let's just say if you could get rid of that and have a card one of these, I'm sure it doesn't work like that. I would have said, let's have a card one of these and don't give me any ruler, or give me a paper ruler or something, because that would have been fine. People get a tape measure. People can do that. But minor thing, I've got mats. I won't use it anyway, really. But fine. Nothing. Miniatures, absolutely stunning. And we knew that every new miniature was going to. We've not had that since The Hobbit, have we? Every new miniature in the set, brand new. Pelennor was a flood us with old miniatures with a couple of brand new characters to show us what they could do with new plastics, but the budget was limited. And then the last set, Osgiliath, similar kind of thing. Old plastics, not as many this time, but new buildings. So that was the offsets. You naturally get some new terrain, some new beautiful Osgiliath buildings, and again, new characters. Really, really cool. And this is the difference, and this is what I suppose having a film launch can do for you. The extra budget that's attributed to it means that they can do more, and that's why you've got brand new everything. I think I didn't enjoy gluing faces on miniatures, I'm not going to lie. And I do wonder whether that's the Games Workshop way now, the way they cut their miniatures. You can't sit there anymore and trim off and have your pile of legs, your pile of bodies, your pile of right arms, your pile of left arms and heads. I did used to like that way of building, but you did end up with all your men looking like this. These are beautiful, dynamic miniatures. In order to get them in those poses and to have very few mold lines at all, or when they are, have them hidden, is to have them engineered the way they are. But it does mean they take so much longer to build. And this isn't just this set. This is all modern Games Workshop non-push fit miniatures. They take so much longer to build. I do this for a living, building and painting miniatures. It's added loads of time to my work. So it takes so much time to build now, and you have to follow the instructions, because if you don't, unless you've built them before and you know, you can get yourself into trouble. You can't just trim all the bits off, or you just it's the whoa, it'd just be a
Oh
nightmare.
yeah, I paint built what 2,000 points of what do they call it? Adept Sororitas, Sister Battle,
Yeah,
and I still wasn't quite comfortable enough by the end to do it
yeah,
like
yeah. I
freestyle. I still
find the
had to
same
get
thing.
the instructions out.
So you just kind of like, okay, I'm going to check, and it's fine, but it just that the old feelings. I was. It depends how you used to do it, but I was the kind of person that really would trim off all the legs, trim off the body, clean all the
Yep.
mold lines off, which I do first.
Uh,
I clean mold lines and then
Building Space
assemble.
Marines. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
cleaned
used
it
to have
all off,
lines of
and
them.
then at that point, once you've done the boring bit, the actual building I used to really enjoy. Now I don't
Mm,
enjoy building so much anymore. I don't mind when it's a single model or something, but when I'm not going to lie, painting, building those 48 warriors in this set, especially there was a bit of time pressure on me, I suppose, because I needed to get content made and things. I didn't enjoy all of it. I did, they're nice to build in some ways, but in terms of feeling I needed to get it done. Now, maybe that's part of it. So maybe I was kind of swayed a little bit. So that's not a criticism. I think that's just the way modern Games Workshop miniatures are. But the final thing to add to that is I think that process and that design philosophy works better with heroic scale miniatures as well. So those gluing
mm.
those separate faces on is small. When they're that small, when they're 28 mil, maybe exacerbates that problem. And the other thing I found, some of the arrows and some of the, especially the Roham bows, the Hillman bows are a little bit thicker, but the Roham bows, they're very thin, and just trimming them off the sprues, I've got you've got stress marks in the plastic already, and they've got two or three different connection points. Some of them have an extra little connection where it's clearly like an air outlet flow, so the plastic flows through, so you get a better cast, but you've got to remove them. And then when you've got a 2 mil thick spear shaft or bow or a 1.5 mil arrow, and you've got three little notches that you've got to file off somehow, it's really hard to hold and do and break. And I broke one of the princes. They're both I don't know which one it was, the one with the bow. I broke that. And then as I was filming the bit, these are the finished miniatures, I was like, oh, the arrow's gone. Um, and then I pressed stop on the record, and then I saw it just on the table. So I'd weakened it, and then just by picking it up, I'd knocked it off. So it's in my review. It's me holding it up, and then I glued it back on. So it's back on, but I do fear for people who don't transport their miniatures on magnetic trays. So you've got them in foam. The foam's going to
Lock them
cause a
off.
few
Yeah.
casualties, I think, to these miniatures. So it's not a criticism. The sculpts are amazing, but you can't throw them around like you can some plastic miniatures. There's a little bit of fragility to some of those really fine parts. So it's just more an advisory. Would I change it? No, because I don't want them bigger and chunkier. I wouldn't want it any different. But just be mindful when you're building them. Um, and yeah, they're small parts, so make sure that there's no spares apart from where you've got a
Mm.
weapon choice as well. So you've got these rammed things. The Hillman, you've got the odd, so nearly every of them. No, so all of the spears and the double-handed weapon guys, you got a second option. So you got those spare. For the Rohan, there's no spares. You lose a face, you better get good at doing faces with green stuff or make them hood. um, I didn't lose anything, and I've got a grey carpet as well. But I was extra careful, making sure that I was leaning over the desk. That if it did ping off, it didn't go too far. And yeah, I was lucky. So just bear it in mind. So it's not a criticism; it's more of an advisory. But it's definitely a talkable point there. It's not a problem-free release. There are some complications with it, but at least they're not resin, because if they're that fine and resin, they'd be snapping all over the place as well. So I think mostly they will be absolutely fine, but they are stunning models, really, really beautiful
Yeah.
miniatures. Really enjoyed the two I painted. Easier to paint than the older models, even though there's less detail on the older miniatures. Obviously, they weren't older Hillman, but they're older Rohan warriors. It's so crisp that
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to
Definition.
zone your paint jobs, basically, and that made the difference. Maybe should have left the shields off, but make it a little bit easier. But again, I didn't have too many issues, and the bond is so much better when you glue plastic to plastic using plastic glue. So I probably would still glue the shields on. But yeah, watch out for those painting tutorials, and you'll see how I did them. But they were good fun, and I think relatively simple to make them look nice. And the ones I showed earlier, and I'll pop them on the screen again now, they they started from zenithal and contrast base for the Rohan warrior, and layering up through blacks with the airbrush for the hill. Tried with a little bit of dry brushing before putting some contrast paints on before I highlight. So some very repeatable techniques if you army painting, which is my goal there. So let's I suppose let's move on to the rules. Let me grab the right one 'cause I've got the wrong addition to that
Mm.
side. Let's move on to the rules, and we're not going to do a full kind of go through for the rules because I don't think there's too much to talk about rather than some over sort of arching
They've not
things.
reinvented the wheel, have they?
No, it is the same. So anyone who's concerned, these are the same rules. They've not, they people, because all these posts on social media, and you're not in the groups anymore, but all these posts, people are going to wreck
Nope.
the game and simplify the game. It's going to be awful. It's the same game. They've split your fight and shoot value into two things on the profile. So, but essentially it works exactly, or not essentially, it does work
Mm.
exactly the same. It's just
Yeah.
easier to read. There's no little dash now, which was a quirk of strategy battle game anyway. We have the intelligence statistic, which is really easy. It's just a dice roll, and courage
Yeah.
is now it's got a target roll on your stat
Target
rather
roll.
than adding
Yeah.
it to your 2d6. But essentially, it works the same way, and it's just
Because
modernizing it.
every time I taught someone that, they were like, "Why is it 10?
Yeah,
Why is it going to be 2d6 to get to 10?" What? And I never had an answer for that. I was like, "Because it is."
because it's always been that way. Yeah,
Because GW arbitrarily made 10 the highest stat, but they're strength 14 in 40k. Good point.
yeah, yeah.
It's so now it's very straightforward. It's in it's a gaming methodology that's understood by
Mhm,
anyone else who's played any, particularly anyone who's played any of the GW system. They're going to get it, which is great.
mhm.
Hopefully, get some people overplaying it.
I think that's important, and maybe something we talked about this before we started recording. I wouldn't have been averse to them doing this in Old World on some stats as well.
Oh no, yeah,
I know
agree.
they wanted to keep the Grodnars happy, and I get it, and make it feel like, oh, but again, for where it doesn't essentially change the game, I would have been very happy for them to have done it for leadership values and things for that, and just make that same change. I think it's as a parent of a 10-year-old who's playing games with me now and seeing him want to play Old World, and we did play some fantasy. There is a point to this. It's not just going on for the Old World chatter, but he wanted to play it, but I was basically running the game completely for him. To see him playing 40k, and you'd have seen that, Dan, he can look at the data card, and it's telling him on the card what he
Yeah,
needs to roll. But nothing's changed. You're just not cross-referencing there because that information is for you on the card. Then there's only one small table in 40k, and that's just for your wounding. And again, you can he's memorized that in no time whatsoever. Where it takes people a lot longer to memorize the the two wound charts in fantasy and mid left. Look, it's still there. It still exists. So
mm,
they haven't done the game down. And what before I forget, so I said that I can mention about where the extra pages have gone. Um, all that's disappeared. So this ends with page 174 on the contents. And if I reach over here and grab the previous edition, we get to a similar place in the book. So the rules actually end on page 151 in the previous. It's actually less pages of rules because the last section of the book
oh, the armies, yeah.
is all of these color plates. That's all it is. So it's a big chunk of
Wow.
pages, which will no doubt cost an awful lot of the printers. So you've got all of those pages, obviously, and then you've got like the other books, the advertising of the other supplements because it's been out forever. So you've got like
Well, probably couldn't have put that in
66,
this
nearly
one.
70 pages of beautiful color prints.
Yeah,
But
but it's a bit of here's what you could have won, isn't it? Because I'm that's in Legacy
mm,
now.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I grew up with fantasy and 40k and loving those color
Mm.
pages. So I get it. I'm not going to sort of belittle people who wanted those. But if you're worried about what those pages are, it's not rules. They've not
But I
changed
don't
the
need to take
rules and
color
made it
plates
dumbed it down.
to a bloody tournament, do I? That's why I always like the little chapbook versions of the rule books
Yeah,
that they used to do for 40k and stuff. Because you'd buy your big book and it'd have your, particularly if they'd advanced the fluff, advanced the
yeah,
background, you'd have all that at the beginning and all the cool artwork and that kind of thing. And then there's your rule section and then there's your armies and this is all the funky stuff. And you didn't want to take all of that with you, so they went, "Here's the rules condensed down to a little chat." Because God knows you have to take enough books to events
yeah.
anyway. That's why a lot of people are now you just see them with an iPad.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And yeah,
what
that's
I
that's yes,
that's what I'll
exactly.
do.
Oh,
I will go and buy all the digital versions of these anyway, because most of the
100%.
time I want to check something, I'm not. But my books sit on the shelf. They stay nice as well. Then and I do like to
Mm.
collect them. This is I have got every publication for this game. It's the only game actually I've got everything. So I've got every single publication. I think there's a couple
I
of
don't
North
have the
American
armies
pamphlet
of.
things, but sorry.
I don't have the armies of.
No, well, I
I
don't
got.
have the new ones
Well, no,
as
no,
it
I don't have the old
stands.
ones. I
Um,
got shot of those.
ah,
Well, yeah, I got shot of those because I've got the PDFs and stuff.
yeah,
Obviously, the
you bought the PDFs off.
the ebooks. Yeah,
Hmm.
on my and then I usually write out cards because you
Yeah,
get so
yeah.
many blank ones. And then what I did was color photocopied them.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
You
so
you
write the
don't need
cards
them.
and
I
put them in
don't use
slips.
them at
Yeah,
all. I pull that down, so I'm not going through an iPad. It's easier at pace. But yeah, since I bought the books, they go on the shelf, and I've bought the digital versions of them
no,
all, and I've not needed it. But um, I suppose another comment on the rules, and they mentioned this in one of the articles that was out this week. It's about they've reworded an awful lot of it, so it
yeah,
feels like a rules change, but they've used more modern GW language, and I'm going to fail to think of any examples at the moment. But it feels easier to read. It feels briefer, so much so
mm,
that I thought, oh, I wonder if they told this rule in less pages. So I grabbed both books and I didn't film this part because I thought it'd be really boring. But I counted
yeah,
up how many pages is it for moves? It was actually one more page on the movement rules. So they haven't actually reduced the page count on the rules,
mm,
and I've said that already, but it felt like they'd trimmed out some of the fat. So it's clearly they haven't trimmed any word count at all there, or it doesn't appear to be. But what they've done is worded it, and it wasn't a bad set of rules anyway, but they've improved the wording. So you can read the rule and it's just that little bit clearer, some of that ambiguity that you get with all rules. And I'm sure there'll be plenty in this. And now as the same with anything, the first real test is when it goes out to the public and God knows how
and they
many
break it.
thousands and thousands of gamers worldwide try to break it because that's just what happens always. But it felt nice to read, and I think Jay and whoever else was writing as well, as we know Jay was writing, but have done an excellent job of reworking it and just make it into something that people can pick up and understand the game almost straight away, really. And I think with the scenarios where you start with just warriors and then you add in a couple of characters, and they advise you to maybe not use will and might and things for anything other than the limited amounts of usage. If you follow that through, you read this once and you follow those scenarios through, by the end of it, using this set, you'll have a decent idea how to play the game. And I'm going to be doing that with Jacob. He's really excited. I'm going to take him to see the film. I think it's a 12A's in it, so I'll get away with taking him in. He's seen all the other films. I can't imagine there's going to be anything in this animated film that's going to be anything he
No,
shouldn't see. So we're really excited to go and see it. It probably won't be launch night, but hopefully the Saturday or the Sunday for that weekend. So he's super excited to go and see it. And yeah, and we'll no doubt he'll come back and really want to play. And it's all built now. I won't get it all painted by then, but playing here in the office, just the two of us, will maybe even put out the mat, maybe. Put out the mat, too shiny. And and play some games and work our way through those, and it'll blow the dust off for me a little bit, and because it's been a while, and get him learning the game as well. And no doubt he will get it because it's something he can be more actively involved in rules wise, rather than as much as I want him to play Old World. Yeah, that is just it's a heavy game. And I think he'll love it. And this is probably the limit of the size that he'll need. I will no doubt want to go and buy some of the other characters and things. Have you
mm.
got any other thoughts on the rule
Well,
book before
one thing, they have clarified base sizes and unit profiles now,
they
which
have?
is pretty cool. As an aside to that, I've always been a fan of generation shift bases. So some people may
Hmm.
have seen Matt, who is Mr. Generation Shift. One he's renamed to GS bases, and he's also allied, hey, segue, with Seven City. So
Yeah.
they're going to be doing some of the logistics stuff for him to help him out because he is but one man, very nice man, but one man.
Yes.
So now you'll be able to go and get your bases from him if you wish to. I'd imagine
Yeah. One man that's
there's
going to be
definitely most people who are watching
a little
this.
bit busier
Yeah.
in the future as well. So a out of the frying pan hobby hour. Congratulations on that front as well.
Yes.
But
Well done, mate.
no, great stuff. That's really good. He's got people to help him with the logistics side of things. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
So
But
we're
back to
not
base sizes. They just one point on this though. One thing I'd be really interested to see, because obviously at the point of recording, we haven't seen inside the army's books yet. What about war machines? Because I'm someone who likes to base my war machines. I like catapults, water catapults and stuff to be on a base. And my Iron Hills ballista is on a base and stuff because I think it looks better. And
yeah.
there are people who say, "Oh, you shouldn't." It's I don't agree with them. But unfortunately now I think there may be a stick to beat us with if they don't have a base size on it. Well, it has to be the official base size as per profile, which is no base. So take it off a base.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
potential.
don't want to play those kind of people. I don't think, but all the same,
Mm.
I'm interested to see what happens with that one. But I do like the fact they have clarified base sizes throughout now.
Yeah, well, you can leave something on the base and ignore it for game purposes
Yeah, of
anyway,
course you
can't you? If you
can.
didn't have a base and you just move models up over the edge of the base.
Mm,
So we're not done though. That was kind of like a brief thought of the sort of the intro set really. And like I said, there's no point in, I don't think, I don't want to go into through this line by line because I don't think there's enough
yeah, men read
changes
book.
in there,
No.
very subtle changes. And the match play kind of people. One thing I did notice, and maybe you can help me in the comments. I was looking through the match play part earlier, and we talked about this beforehand. There's something I hadn't seen before. Maybe this has always been the case, but one of the last bullet points on match play says when playing a 6x4 board, typically 1,000 point games, players must choose one of the long-sided edges as their board. That makes sense, and it's the way they always show them on the scenario maps. They're always shown as a six by
Yeah.
four style board. But the line after that, when playing on a 4x4 board, players may choose any board edge as their board edge, as they are the same length. Now, I can't remember whether I've made my go out of focus now. I can't remember whether it's always been that way and I've just forgotten in the year or so that I haven't played a game,
Mm,
or whether that's new. So someone put in the comments and remind my aging brain whether it's always been that way. I can't remember ever playing it that way at events where we rolled off and went, okay, and we're going to go this side and
yeah.
this side,
It's
apart
usually
from
only
scenarios,
for
particularly where you could do that.
maelstrom and doubles. You tend
Yeah,
to see
yeah.
that,
So
but yeah.
that I don't know. I don't. But I just feel like you look at the scenario, and because you've got defined deployment areas on the 6x4 map, which they always show you, people just follow that. I looked in the previous rules and I didn't see a line like that, but it may have always been the case. Interested to know if it's something I didn't know, or whether that's new, or whether that's interesting. Also in the or on it, and I mentioned this in my review as well. But in this book, when you get past your scenarios and you've got a where to go next kind of thing, and it talks about the books that are coming out. So we've got 3 army books on the way. There is a little bit about match play guide down the bottom as well. So he's basically selling the match play guide. So if you want to play competitively, get the match play guide, which I thought was interesting. And it mentions 24 match play scenarios. I don't know if they're including the doubles ones in that number
Mm,
or not. Because if they're not, does that mean there's a new match play guide on the way, or does the existing one still work? Because I don't remember them announcing a new match play guide. I would have assumed there would have been one
it might just be a
coming
redux.
anyway. You think they reprinted anything? It's been popular. 24 match play scenarios. And it says there are 6 specifically designed doubles. So again, I don't know if that number's included or not. So again, another comment. Does anyone know? Does that mean there's a new one coming? Or are they saying get the old one because it still works? I think some of it can't work because the victory conditions have changed, haven't they? Now there's more victory points
Up to
in all
20.
of the
Yeah.
6 scenarios that are in the core rulebook. So there's got to be a rework match play guide on the way. And maybe it's been announced and I completely missed that. Maybe it has been. I haven't seen it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. So we've had some leaks of the armies of Lord of the Rings book. I'm not going to post any pictures up of the leaks. I've only skimmed them. Dan's read them a little bit more than me. I'm not going to post them up because I don't know where I sit with the NDA for doing those kind of things anyway. And we're not competitive gamers, so I don't want to go through it list by list. In fact, there's already at least 1, maybe 2 videos on YouTube anyway, doing that. People going through, giving a little bit of analysis on every single list. That's not something that we want to do in this podcast anyway. But I wanted to talk about those armies books and talk about the community reaction as a whole to what's going on with this release. And I suppose the news that some stuff, or quite a lot of stuff, has been legacied. So what order do you want to take it down? Do you want to go legacied first, or just kind of the
Mm,
general? Should we stick with the rules and just talk in general about the new army list
yeah,
structure for match play?
yeah. I mean, you didn't really take the opportunity to go through what's been shared, shall we say, online.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is available. I've gone through a little bit more than you did. I had a bit of a cursory flick through. I mean, the first thing that's abundantly clear is it's what's in the movies.
Yeah.
It's any what's gone is, and again that ties to the legacy side of things, but definitely with the army composition, you can see it's was it in the movie? Yeah, cool, you can have it. Was it not? Nah, see you later then.
Yeah.
Which has made Moria slightly interesting, I'd say. It's very, very small. Um, but some of the like army, they really are leaning very heavily on theme, and it's great.
Mm.
And I love one of them also I like is they've extended Breaking of the Fellowship. So at the moment it's like 600 odd points, and it's the 8 members of the
Yeah.
Fellowship very swiftly. Whereas now you can have how it is elves as well. So you
Yes.
can bring
Yeah.
it up to 1,000 points, which is cool. And there's rules that work with that too.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I mean, again, not read through them all. You come to the wrong place if you want an exhaustive breakdown. I think we're very clear on that kind of thing. But there's some of them that caught my eye. The Minas Morgul one, really
Hmm.
interesting, because it prescribes with the ring wraiths. It says specifically how much might, will, and fate they have. You
Hmm.
buy them like that at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and you can add Morgul blades to all of them now, which I think is quite cool,
Yeah.
rather than just the Witch King. But basically, things get like really good if they're in range of a spirit, and you can have your Blades of the Dead, and it makes that army a lot more interesting. I really like
Yes.
that. I suppose because they've taken out stuff, you've lost your
Yeah.
stalkers and things like that. Being able to put, you know, interesting interactions in with that's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really, really like that. They've changed range of Athelion because you can't go all bow arm now. It's up to 50%, not
Yeah.
30,
So
not
they've
33.
toned down the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
massively, which I think's good.
Hmm.
Because to be honest, if you want to play that army thematically and make it nice, it becomes a bogeyman army. So
Yeah.
you don't want to take it.
I
I'd love
I
to paint an
bought it
army.
all and didn't go ahead with it because it was deemed a little bit
Hmm,
too. And I don't want to have an army that's. I don't play at competitive events where I think
hmm,
that kind of thing's fine. You still want to try and balance it, but if you're playing casually, not casualties, we don't want to do that.
hmm.
That's a different kind of game. If you're playing casually, you also want your opponents to have a good game, and if you're
Yeah.
bringing something that's not fun to play against them, so it's a shame because I really like that aesthetic and the theme from the book. So I think what we should make very clear is the Allies matrix has gone. The whole way of doing lists has changed. So
Hmm.
you don't have these kind of weird mismatch lists anymore where you could, well, like technically kind of allies. So we're going to have Aragorn and we're going to have this model and this model that thematically never existed in any of the lore, whether it be that the book or the films. And I personally like that. I get it from
Hmm.
a competitive problem solving kind of way that some people will miss that, and that's fine as well. To be honest with you, I wouldn't, but just because I don't like to play that way, I'm not going to say, well, tough. Um, I get some people won't miss that. Personally, it never appealed to me anyway. And when Legendary Legions appeared, I loved them because it was exactly what
Yeah.
I wanted to do, and it meant you could almost play match play, whether that is at a competitive event or just at your club or at home, points match, meant you could play match play, but also have a really nice inbuilt narrative theme to your army
Hmm.
because the whole game was designed around that. And I think that was so strong. And to go with that now as a way of building your armies is great. And I'm really personally really glad to see that. That's exactly what I wanted. I do appreciate that it does limit some people's ingenuity and the things they used to do. It doesn't affect me, because I want things to be simple. I quite like the theme. I like the films. I love the books, by the way, but I'm really interested in the whole lore. but from a
Mm.
war game point of view, I was never super interested in delving into the appendices for my inspiration for my armies. I quite like taking inspiration from the films, which is just the way I play. So this has not hit me at all. The changes for me actually point the game in a direction that I'd like. I'm not just saying that because they're giving me a free box. It's I just like that anyway.
I wouldn't be
So
surprised if Kate
it's
wants
one
it
of those, but I
anyway.
do understand that some people will feel the way I played the way they played the game, the way they played the game for a long, long time has fundamentally changed competitively. So the really competitive players that you see it almost as a chess or maths problem or something. That's equally valid. I'm not one. I really. I'm more militant on this than Dan, but I am with all wargaming. I am not a kind of competitive gamers are all try hard, blah blah blah. As narrative gamers also, we should all play the kind of games you want and try and find yourself in play groups where you've got people that are like-minded and play the way you want to. And in the most part, you can do that. So I think competitive play is great. I think it's interesting as well, but I'm not sad for the changes they've made because it kind of suits the way I like to envisage the game anyway. And I still think there's going to be a massive meta and competitive market there anyway. It's just going
Of
to be
course there is.
different for people now because of the flexibility of what they can do within those changes a little bit different. But
Yeah, so I really like the way they've gone with it. It's always been more my style of play. Yeah, I'm not really hidden that I found it's the way some people play, approaching it like a like a monkey puzzle. No, it's not always been my particular thing, and I'm sure that there will be events that cater to that because the community will comp. They will work
mhm,
out how to reestablish an allies rule, and they will allow people to build armies in a way that makes them happy, and they can do what they want to do. But actually, I think that is very much the extreme end, I would
mhm,
say. Most people I know don't play like that. Admittedly, I don't move in the competitive circles, so people's mileage may vary, but most people seem far more happy with this. Admittedly, I missed that article actually initially at the time that saying that the Allies Matrix was gone, and I did. Like the neighbours arguing, you hear it through the wall a little bit. People are unhappy. They're saying, "Oh, army list selection's gone down," and I did sort of have a little look around. And I thought, I don't know, this looks okay. And then someone pointed out that allies have gone. I thought, oh right, okay then. Yeah, I get it. But also it's making you take an army now rather than much like I've made this point about potentially some of the stuff in Old World, four dragons in an army, it starts looking like a child's dinosaur collection.
mhm.
Some people's armies didn't look like armies anymore. They didn't look representative of Middle Earth as we know it, whether
Yeah,
Jackson's Middle Earth or whether Alan Lee's illustrations, whether Tolkien's. It didn't look like a Middle Earth that I knew.
yeah,
And I appreciate that my views aren't shared by everyone. Completely understand people can do. They're your models, it's your game. Go do what you want to do. But that's not something I want to be involved in. So the idea that I can go to an event and or go pick have probably not going to ever happen, but pick up play, and I'm going to see an army across the board that looks more like an army and hopefully is painted. Um, that's a nice thing for me. It makes me
yeah,
more happy about engaging.
yeah.
I,
Great.
I'm not expecting anyone to cater for me, but if that's going to be the new standard, that's a standard I'm very happy with. But as
Yeah.
in all these things, there is always winners and there is always losers. We
Hmm.
just need to be sympathetic to those who are feeling a little bit burned at the minute.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
And I suppose just to cover it briefly again for anyone who doesn't know, there's two. So you got the core rule book, which is in this starter set. There's no profiles and rules for building your armies. There's a little bit in that starter book just to use what you got in the box. And then there are army books and the way they've done this for the last edition and the 1.5 edition. Um, you get an Armies of Lord of the Rings book and an Armies of the Hobbit book. The Armies of Lord of the Rings will also have profiles for all of the War of the Rohirrim profiles as well. That counts as Lord of the
mm,
Rings. And it really centered around the profiles and stories from those films mostly. There's a little bit still more just sort of Tolkien based stuff in them as well. It's not pure film, but it's mostly stuff that was in the
yeah,
films, as you mentioned a few moments ago. And with that, there is one other book called Armies of Middle Earth, which is going to have rules and profiles for things that aren't covered those, but they are, as far as I'm aware, not going to be as tournament legal kind of thing. It kind of covers all of the older stuff. Am
Yeah,
I right in thinking that?
if it's anything
Um,
like the way it's done for other systems, third party independent gaming events, which let's be honest, the majority of Middle Earth gaming is that they just say don't worry about it, play them. The only
yeah.
downside of that is usually the what they call legacy units aren't updated. But this is
Yes.
probably what it'll be for this edition. You
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
aren't going to get
I
them
imagine.
tweaked.
I mean, I
They
think it's
won't get
good. There's going to be a
FAQ'd.
book, isn't there? In many ways,
Yeah,
that's doesn't follow what they've done for other game
yeah.
systems. So if
I
we
mean,
keep using Old World as an example, but that's because
got
this so
PDFs.
heavily features the. There's only 9 core factions. The other
Hmm.
factions that came out with PDFs. Yes, it's free, and I think there is going to be a PDF for the stuff that was released most
Angmar.
recently. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a PDF for that because it didn't make its way into any of the books because of the timings of it all. But the fact that that's far, unless I'm dreaming, the fact that you're able to buy this book, purchase this book, definitely gives it some legitimacy. Shows how much love and work that would have gone into it. But what it means is, moving forward, the focus is going to be on the 2 core armies of books with this reduced number of profiles. And the way I look at it, for me, when I heard the announcement, I just thought, well, it just makes total sense from a business point of view. And this is where it gets boring, I suppose, the
Hmm.
conversation. And people have heard me bang on about this in other videos before, but Games Workshop has been struggling for a long time to keep product in stock. It's got better recently, actually, but it's still struggling to keep product in stock across all of its lines. Even 40K stuff goes out of stock a lot. They struggle with logistics. They're building new factories. They're doing so much to try and keep up with the demand. You look at their growth. There's something that's been shared in the groups recently. Look at their growth, how much it's grown exponentially, especially since the pandemic. They just grown so much quicker in sales than that there's no way they could have planned
Yeah.
for it. It's not their fault as such. You could say, well, you need to slow down your releases, maybe 4 year cycles on some things, and all the other. There are arguments. I get it. I'd like to see 4 year cycles on
Those
some of the
individuals
games,
clearly don't answer to shareholders, I'd
but that's
say.
not. Yeah, exactly. All seems very logical, but it doesn't work with the way share price works and the way that the shareholders work. So they're struggling, and there will be items out there that don't make much margin. And in order to have something on your, I don't know exactly how this works, but it's something along these lines. In order, each item's going to have a margin price or amount of money it needs to make. So you have a price that it's charged at, and then it has to cover all its costs, and what's left over is its margin. In order to have things stay on your main line, they have to reach a certain amount of money. And sometimes if they don't make much money, it means you've got to push the prices up of those things. That's quite often with Middle Earth, with some of these smaller items, these slower moving stock items, you see them on made to order because they just don't have the space to store them all the time. And if they did
Yeah.
store them all the time, they would sell so few that it wouldn't be worth it versus the cost it keeps to make them, maintain the molds and all of those other things. So we've had made to orders, but I think what we're seeing now is just that realization of, do we really need miniatures that are over 20 years old that we maybe, I'm going to pick this out of the air. I don't know this, but that this this Haradrim model here that we sell 5 of a year, do we need that? What's that doing for our business model, us as a profitability? You imagine how minuscule that must look compared to even the most lowest selling 40K miniature. And you've got to put this all in the context of the way this massive company thinks
Hmm.
that Middle Earth on its own is almost run like a small gaming company. And then when you reduce it down to its smallest old metal miniature that sells nothing all year, do you, would you sell it? Yes, an independent seller who casts their own miniatures might sell it, but would a company the size of Game Shop stock it? It just makes no sense. I imagine
There's also the
that
less
a lot of
tangible
that's gone into
costs.
the decision making here as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a margin analyst who's going to have to review that cost line all the time. You've got to keep up with that. That's going to be included in stock provision, everything. So it's
Mm.
the less tangible, but associated costs are going to be just with that product line. It's probably not going to wash its face. So it was
Yeah.
always going to have. I mean, some of it I'm quite sad about.
Mm.
Some of those miniatures that have been canned, like the Great Beast of Gorgoroth. I love
Yeah,
that
it's a
model,
beautiful
and I
miniature.
had
I
great
sold
fun
mine because I
painting
didn't
it.
think I needed it, and now I regret it because it's gone. Um, so
I genuinely. Well, if you can source a Howdah, I can sort you out with the Great Beast.
No,
Or you could
I've
build
got
your
too
own.
many projects, too many projects. And to be very clear, I don't. No one's told me that. This is just there is assumption there,
Mm.
and I might be completely way off the mark, but I know the margins will come into it. If it works the way
Well,
I've
there's also
described
to
or not,
consider.
I don't know. And I do care. It's not that I'm saying, well, they they won't they weren't business soluble, so I don't care.
Mm.
They're gone. I do actually care. It's sad. It is a shame that those things had to go, but at the same time, I'm just trying to offer reasons why business
Well,
sense, it probably made sense that they went, and maybe makes the game more secure in the future. If more of its product lines are to be shown to be profitable, so that when they
yeah.
next come to pay for a license and that comes up, it looks more positive on all of
That was also
their
going to be my
ships.
point, is how much of the license is included in the Warner Brothers,
Mm,
new line deal, and how much of it they're paying extra to
yeah,
include
I
Legendarium
don't
items
know, and
to
that could
include the
well
other
be it.
bits. And if it's not making a lot of money and they've got to pay a lot of money for it, you can't
Mm,
blame them. I mean, yes, it's sad. I mean, I've some of them got Goroth,
hmm
Guritz, both of the orcs they did for Defense of the North, which I can't remember the names of at the moment, but I
Yeah.
loved and I love painting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's new
Great Beast of
miniatures as well. So
Gorgoroth,
I gave examples of all these old
Castellans of
miniatures, but
Dol Guldur.
there's new ones as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of new minis actually have
Mm.
gone. No one said anything about Bjornings, which has given me the ick
hmm
a bit at the moment. So we'll have to see how that one
all the
goes.
Dunland stuff that's gone,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's
But that will
gone.
now be
It-
people will repurpose them into the hill
yeah,
tribes and stuff, I imagine. And I wouldn't be surprised when we see those books, if some of those
but
miniatures aren't even used for that.
isn't
If they can,
the Oath Maker still staying?
I
Because I don't think I saw
think
that
so.
on the list of things to
Don't think
go.
so. Yeah, I'm not sure, but there's a lot of stuff they've
Hmm.
released in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. It's brand new resins, really modern style sculpts that, um, which are on there as well. So there's,
Yeah, I'll be
I
surprised if they're still selling the Angmar stuff next year, which is
yeah, well,
sad.
yeah, that would be sad. Have they announced anything to do with license, or is that just an assumption? Because my assumption is that at some point in the last couple of years they must have reworked or re-signed or something. We know that the
They would
license
have had
holder
to.
changed, and they
Yeah,
must have
yeah.
to get this, they've got to have some kind of conversations around it. So maybe as part of that as well, this is all linked in. It was a case of, yeah, we're going to sign this license, but we're signing a license for the movie properties essentially.
But there's also a
And with
thought that
that,
they
we don't
were just
have,
told
like
they
you said,
can't.
pay for separate licenses. Maybe they've just gone, well, it just makes no sense. They're slow moving, maybe low sales items. They're not kind of super recognizable. They're things they've come up with themselves. And we've got to pay extra for them. And the range is too big. Because I imagine at some point there's too many pips, there's too many lines on this spreadsheet. Your range is too big. Cut the range down. So all of those things would have come into it. So I'm not surprised. Yes, there are some sad bits. I think the game will probably be stronger for it in the long term. But I do have a lot of sympathy with people who have had armies, especially armies they have bought recently, last couple of years, that resin armies they think, well, these will be safe because they're really new, that suddenly find their armies doesn't have a list anymore. Or at least it doesn't have a technically match play legal list in one of the two main army books.
Yeah. I mean, I've
But
seen
again,
some
comments
beautiful
below.
armies over the last couple of years.
Try and keep it sort
Civil.
of civil. I know people get angry and passionate about their hobby. So just try and see both sides. Yeah, I feel really
I
sorry for the
can't fault
people. I
anyone with
can
that.
understand. I'm just
I
too
can't.
sort of fence city logical the way I think about things. So even when I do have a kind of passionate reaction to something like that, I could quite quickly go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." So maybe I need to be a little bit more angry about things sometimes. But
Well, I think we're less engaged. I think that helps. And it's not that we don't love it as much, but our contribution to the hobby and our engagement in the hobby is glacial. We go
mhm,
to an event maybe once every 6 months. So for people who are going every couple of weeks,
yeah,
this is going to hurt because it makes up a far more significant amount of this. It's their hobby, it's their joy, it's the thing they do when they've finished work. I
yeah.
get it. I absolutely get it. And yeah, please don't take anything I say on this about trying to be objective about it as me not caring. It
hmm
would be rather hypocritical after my Dolly left the pram over the vampire counts for me to do that. Um, yeah, which I'm still sore over. There's no point in denying that one.
Oh
So
no, he's just remembered again. That's it.
no, no, no. There's a model up there that keep constantly bloody reminds me. But it's it won't change.
Mm,
So there's an opportunity to re-engage with the hobby and get on board with it. And most people who have got a lot of that legacy stuff have probably got a large enough collection to play with the rules that are left.
yeah.
So maybe we can all have some cool games together, and that'd be nice. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
happy
yeah.
clappy for me. Maybe I don't know what was in my drink, but
I was going to say I've not seen you drinking tonight. And again, this is stuff that's happened with other Games Workshop ranges in the past. This is it doesn't. Middle Earth's always had its slightly own trajectory, hasn't it? It's a different,
yeah,
a huge spike at the beginning when it would kind of completely change the Games Workshop business to the kind of the fears after the kind of failure in many ways of the Hobbit, not in terms of the quality of the
mm,
game, but in terms of the sales of it, which led to the dark days where people wondered whether the game would end. And then the hype really since it was brought back as Middle Earth strategy battle game, it's done very well, but it's not completely followed the rest of the company in the trends. But
but it's I
this is
think it's being
something
pulled
that
in now.
yes, and this is something that you've seen from fantasy, you've seen from 40K, that miniatures disappear from ranges, profiles go
Mm.
away, and especially when there's no point to them anymore, there are lots of
Well, look at
changes.
AOS. All the culls they made in that. I mean,
Yeah,
Beastmen went out the door. Half the Age of Sigmar line for Stormcast went in one go. So it does
yeah,
happen to everyone. I
yeah,
think it's because Middle Earth's been left on its own to its own devices for so long, it's going to sting a bit more.
yeah.
But that's the thing. With success comes oversight.
Hmm.
That's the same with any business. If you've got a small part of an overarching business that's been ticking away in its own thing, so suddenly starts making money or becomes an opportunity, then someone on the board's going to go, we need to keep an eye on that, and then oversight starts to come in,
Yeah.
and decisions get made that not everyone's happy with. So
And the focus on this being a film release would have really
yeah,
drawn the eye towards the team and what they were doing, and even more so than normal. And I think let's use that as a segue. And I think so Devoid is going around in circles. The last thing I wanted to discuss really was there's quite a lot of chatter around this film being an
mm,
anime film. I'm not a massive anime watcher. I'm looking forward to seeing the film because it's the Lord of the Rings thing. My expectations are kind of medium on it. I don't know how good it's going to be. I suppose the fact that the team behind it, so clearly linked to the original films, does excite me more than it would in
yeah,
another way. But linking that to the game is that a lot of the chatter I saw was, oh, great. Well, the miniatures are going to look like anime miniatures now. This is going to be completely different to the aesthetic from the rest of the game. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if they will do that with the miniatures. And then I saw the pictures of the miniatures and I thought, this looks like Middle Earth miniatures. And then obviously I have the miniatures. And objectively, these miniatures are no different in style, in my opinion, to any of the miniatures we have seen in the last 2, 3, 4 years from the Middle Earth team. The
mm.
style of the faces, in my review video, I held up a couple of the more recent resins next to some of these. Some people will disagree, that's fine. But it,
I think there's
wait,
one or two where they look a little like the helm model
hmm,
looks slightly more caricature than some of the other ones, but I don't know whether when you I've not held it.
yeah,
Not very few of us have, and
yeah. You've only seen it on the
the,
sprue, haven't you? You didn't
and
see
I've
it
only
when it was.
seen well no or the paint job. I've only seen the one that's been on Warcom and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, of
And
course, the
you
helm
know,
model. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
it's not to denigrate anyone's painting, the far from it, but how many times have we seen a preview image of a painted model
yeah,
that's gone out, and then people have been, should we say, less than enthusiastic, and when the actual
yeah, yeah,
model's in
yeah.
hand, everyone's gone, actually, this is cracking.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to keep an open mind on that. So maybe one or two of them
Hmm.
I've looked at
That's
and
fair
gone,
enough. Yeah, I
but
was
I've got to wait.
thinking then about what's in this set, actually. But
Oh,
you're right.
yeah.
Some of the things I haven't laid hands on, some of the things that are only available, then yes, and they're probably quite striking from the film. But then my counter to that, not to your point, but to anyone concerned about this, and who's the people that I'm not going to watch that film because it's an anime, blah, 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 then that's fine because you don't have to play games in this era. And if you want Rohan troops, well, that doesn't look like an anime model. For a start, you can't see the faces on any of them anyway. They've all got helmets on. Doesn't look like an anime model at all. I don't think that the Hillmen definitely are no different to the other sort of modern ranges that they've had out recently. So
I wouldn't be
I think
surprised if
you can
people convert those
avoid
to
a few of those characters from
Empire.
the film if you don't like if you
Mm.
don't like the film. I don't think it signals a change for direction for this as a game to suddenly all be cartoon style, anime style sculpts. They won't be. They, like you said, maybe there are examples of few of the characters, not the ones in this box, in my
No,
opinion.
no.
But maybe some of those characters will look a little bit more like that. But if you don't like them anyway, you probably won't be playing games with those. And what does it signal for the future? I would say no, because we've seen the Rohan Warriors, the Hillman work, and what's the next film that's going to be out?
It's Hunt
It's
for
Hunt
Gollum,
for
isn't it?
Gollum. That's live action. Andy Serkis directing. So we're back to the same team, but live action again. So they're not going to pivot to, I'm going to assume that the license they bought is going to, they hope is going to continue. They probably already know whether they're doing Hunt for Gollum or not because it's being filmed now, isn't it? They must be already be working on stuff. I'm going to assume yes, based on what's happened with this. So I can't see why they would pivot to an anime style for all the miniatures moving forward. I know that most people would agree with that and say, well, who's thinking that? Well, some of the comments in some of the groups would suggest that um, the hyperbolic comments, anyway, people that are getting just using it to get a little bit angry about it. I just don't see it. And you're right there. There are a couple of the sculpts that are clearly designed to match those big end characters in the film, and maybe they look a little bit more like those characters and less sort of traditional Middle
Mm.
Earth. But all the ones in this box quite
But
easily just look like Rohan,
yeah,
Hilmer, Waldman style characters. And I don't think there's any change at all. And they just look like standard modern day Middle Earth strategy battle game sculpts from the last 2 or 3 years for me. So I'm not concerned. And if there's anything I really
no.
don't like the look of, I just won't buy it. But it's going to be the odd miniature, not a change of direction for the whole range, so to speak.
And again, it may just be the paint job. Sometimes
Mm,
that's all it can be.
yeah.
And maybe they've deliberately painted it in a way that suggests that because it does directly tie to the movie.
Well, they're going to have to paint it to
That's
match the
yeah,
movie, aren't they? That's going to be almost part of that. I
yeah.
imagine they're going to be legally obliged to paint it to match the movie. And if the
Well,
movie's using bright colours for some of them, yeah, it's gonna look like that. What we've seen so far is Rohan in Rohan colours. So they're going to look like Rohan, and
yeah,
um, yeah, the Rohan princes. They
they're
really
lovely.
they just
Mm.
look like it's almost the same pose to the Theoden model rearing up, isn't it? I think so. They just fit in. They really do. They just fit in with the existing ranges. They just look like those modern versions that everyone oohs and ahs about. Wow, look at this modern
Mm.
sculpt rather than this really really old one. Like you said, the bad guys. I haven't seen the film. I'm going to assume the bad guys maybe slightly more, but even those, I don't think they're a million miles off.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not worried. Not worried in the
I don't know
slightest.
any new plastic for the especially characters. I still don't think they've topped Gothmog for me in terms
Mm,
of the plastic heroes. I think
it's
he's
a
still
good
my
kit.
favorite. He's lovely. They just nailed it. But I don't think they've done a bad one. I really don't think they've done a bad plastic hero. I mean, I've yet to do Saruman, but funnily enough, I will soon be having a lot. I've done lending, so I will be painting
Yeah,
my
I need
Saruman
to.
finally.
Well, I've painted my foot one. I mean, when did we paint that?
Yeah,
We played. This is back in Out of the Frying Pan days, and
yeah. Wizard's Duel.
we played Wizard's Duel. That might have even still been COVID era. I can't remember, but it was
Yeah,
definitely
I'd say it's
around
probably
that
21,
time.
22.
So it was a while ago. So I've painted him, and I've still got the mounted version where all the
I think mine's
white
still in
airbrushing
cellophane.
is laid down. But that's it. I left him.
Yeah,
I left him.
mine's still in cellophane.
Oh wow! Was mine are open. My Grima's Zenithal, and then the mounted Saruman is, I think the white is done with the airbrush, so it matches the foot one I've already painted. So yeah, like you, I will be, because I'm more interested in movie era Lord of the Rings as well for my games. I might really be inspired by this film when I see it, and for Jacob, but I quite like the idea of painting up my Saruman and using these as sort of Lord of the Rings
Well,
era stuff.
I've got my Lurtz's Scouts as well
Mm,
still. So I was umming and ahhing about getting rid of them, but I think I'm going to keep them because then there may be a Westfold list because
mm,
obviously it was the Wildman and the Scouts that went and burned the Westfold
yeah,
with Saruman. So I think, well, Saruman maybe not, but he was supposed to walk around in the Westfold, wasn't he?
yeah,
So hopefully there'll be some form of Legend of Legion for that in
that would
there.
be cool. That would be really cool. And I quite like the it's obviously from the film. We saw an article today as we're recording, so Friday the 29th, article for one of the playtesters. Bless. I'm going to
Oh,
say who it is
yeah, we love
because
you.
because he works there. It's one of the playtesters who is a games developer as well. Danny will say. Why not name him? I get it if it's a playtester that's supposed to be, playtesters are supposed to be anonymous,
Mm.
aren't they? So people don't ask them questions. But when they work for you in the studio and you print their name in a white dwarf article, both their names in
Yeah,
a white, first and
and
second
he
name
was
in a
on the
white dwarf article,
preview.
but on a Warcom
Yeah,
article, just put one of our playtesters. No, he's not just one of your playtesters. He's one of your real games developers who oh, crazy.
well, they put him on the
He works
sofa
for you. You can
um
mention his name.
for Old World preview, didn't they? He was
Yeah.
literally on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we love you,
It's
Danny.
that lovely looking army. But the point I was getting to anyway is using Rohan models in there as well. So there's like
Mm.
traitorous Rohan in there. And half of
Yeah,
me
I've already
thought,
had a
oh,
conversation
shall
about
I
that
shall I just paint all
tonight.
this into one big army? But I quite like the idea of splitting it both ways
I
so I can play games with
I
Jacob.
want to convert them slightly. I think I'll be
Mhm.
putting some bear heads in and filing down some ornamentation and stuff. Literally, one of the last things before we started recording tonight, I was having a little chat with Henry, and it was that we were literally talking about that exact topic. I was like, yeah, I want to be like, they'd have to be visually distinct for me, not just in color. I'd have to
Yeah.
make some changes.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Right. Anyway, we got into meandery kind of just
Yep.
chitter chatter now, which isn't nice for us to chatter, but we can do that when the recording is not going on. So that is time to probably end the
Shall
show.
we
Is there
do?
anything you want to final comments and things and
Yeah.
shout outs before we go?
Yeah, so TLDR, it's cracking. Really like it. I'm energized for Middle Earth again. Well done, team. I know there's going to be an awful lot of people who work really hard on this, so well done to you all. You know, one of the team, etc. Part of the ship, part of the crew. And as usual, thanks for supporting us. Thanks for when we do post stuff, you engage with it. We don't post enough, we don't do enough, but thank you very much to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo all of that. Really excited to get playing and bring a new generation in and get Jacob playing because he's really excited and that will be fun and that sort of takes me back to the way I like to play this game, just smaller games, not worrying too much about meta. And you get a lot in this box. It doesn't feel like a small game when you've got that many minutes. You got in old money two full war bands anyway. It feels like you got most of an army. So looking forward to playing some games with Jacob and then adding a few bits to this and deciding what I want to do. It'll probably be a Rohan based project, I think. We will. Oh, I'm going to do both. Who am I kidding? But we'll have fun with that. Look out on the channel for, I say, more content to do with Middle Earth. There are two painting tutorials coming up for the miniatures. I mentioned that earlier on, but two painting tutorials on the way. So if you're not subscribed already and you've clicked on this and you're still watching at this stage, then you're probably going to subscribe anyway, I imagine, unless you want to put yourself through some real pain. But subscribe to the channel. There'll be lots more Middle Earth content, along with all the other stuff I cover on the channel. So you've got loads and loads of old world stuff and lots more of that coming as well, including all of the historical bits and pretty much anything, to be honest with you. I can paint anything. I've got some new halflings on the way. I think they've been dispatched, the new snipers, the rattling snipers for 40k. They're so cool, I had to buy them. So that might even be a painting video as well. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll catch you soon.